Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. We are live right now. It is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the 20th day of June. I can't believe we are at the solstice, or what is it, the solstice or the equinox? I can't remember. Anyways, it's here, it's now, it's today. With our thoughts, we make our world. Clearly, I am getting way too much sun. And, I want to apologize if there's a momentary blindness when you see the shirt. I'm assured, though, by my production staff, which would be the little tiny dust bunny down there, that it won't relay quite that bad through the screen. So that's good. We had a beautiful day today. We were up nice and early. We got out onto the lake. It was fresh. There was a nice cool breeze, even though the temperatures climbed quite quickly to right around 28 degrees centigrade. We sure love that morning time, and I said to Kelly, because we're approaching temperatures just under 40 centigrade by the end of next week. This is, I've talked about this already since, a long time ago, including my, little forecast for this year way back at the beginning of the new year. And the heat is on, and I'm not talking about Glenn Fry here, or whatever that show was that they used to do, but the heat is on, and it is going to be devastating. We need to really be taking care of each other. We need to be taking care of ourselves. We need to be staying well hydrated. We need to watch for other people who aren't well hydrated and be willing to help them. We must do more. Now is the time. It's really just going to build all summer long, and we really, really have to focus on each other. We really have to come together, not out of any sense of fear, but of a collective realization that we are all part of this planet, that we are all one family here, every living creature. I know a lot of people say, well, that boy, dude, I look like I'm from the dark side. Twist my chair a bit. I think it's the balcony light. There we go. There. Not speaking from the shadows anymore. We're going to talk tonight about how our thoughts literally create our reality on every level. But the point I wanted to get across, is that I understand a lot of people aren't having this experience yet. They've lost contact with it. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. When I go out in nature, she's all conscious. Every last bit of her communicates. Every last bit of her speaks. Every creature, every leaf, every tree, every branch. It's all conscious. And you can commune with it and be part of it and be enlivened and lifted up by it on every level. And again, I'm not waving my flag in any sort of way because I really don't bother with such stuff. But I'm turning 61 on Wednesday this week. And, I consider myself to be a little out of shape from what I'd really like to be. But, I can do whatever I want. I can go out there and paddle and swim and swing and climb and have a joyous time. And that's offered to each and every one of us, to whatever capacity you can do it in. Even if it means sitting in a wheelchair. Being there underneath a tree, in the shade, taking time to communicate, to get back in touch, to feel that wholeness and oneness again. It is only when we feel separate from each other that we begin to harm each other and harm those things around us. So before we get into this tonight, as always, let me express my love for each and every one of you. You know, no matter what's happening right now, it's absolutely perfect. It really is. It's offering you the ability to choose again, to choose anew, to change your thoughts, which are literally creating your reality. And I want to talk about something really, really interesting first. And yes, it's totally related before we get into the more, I'm not even sure. We'll get there. So way back in the 70s, there was a physicist by the name of Wheeler, and he did some very interesting experiments working with, what we knew to be the quantum realm, and in this case concerned with photons of light. Now, when we think of a photon, and please don't allow your brain to start to catch on fire or short circuit or anything like that. This is not a science lesson. I'm going to keep it really, really simple. If we think of a photon as a little glowing capsule, except it doesn't really have any place to be. So in other words, you can have a photon, but you can't find the photon. Not yet, anyways. In order to find the photon, we have to make a choice as to what we're looking for, because photons of light don't manifest as capsules. They manifest as either a wave or a particle. And in reality, the particle is like, well, if you really must, I'll be a particle. But I'm not. And here's the interesting thing. In 2017, we did a modern day version of Wheeler's experiments in the 70s, bouncing a photon off of a number of satellites through the Earth's atmosphere in order to create enough of a window for an observer to make a decision. And here's the interesting thing. Even after that photon has bounced its way through 3/4 of the entire experiment, through satellite after satellite, when it's almost at the finish line where there's going to be a pronouncement of what it's going to be, the observer chooses whether the observer wants to see that wave or a particle. And in that moment of choice, the photon appears as a wave or a particle. But not only does it appear as a wave or a particle, proving that indeed our thoughts are literally creating reality on every level, it also affects what appears to be back in time, as every detector now measures that wave, even though there was no wave going through there to start with. Interesting. Past, future, present, it's all right now. What does that mean? It means not only do your thoughts affect your present day reality, your thoughts are affecting your reality going backwards as you know it in time, and also affecting your reality going as you would know it forwards. That's what's honestly happening. Thoughts are a catalyst for self-perpetuating cycles. If we think negative, we end up speaking negative, and we end up acting negative. Now, remember what I said about creation. I'm just giving you a minute to see if you remember. No one does. Okay. No, creation. Thought, word, and deed, all in a straight line. Well, here's the funny thing about humans and thought. The only time that we seem to honestly be able to easily put thought, word, and deed in a nice straight line, as if it's negative and causing misery and causing us harm in some way. We're really adept at having negative thoughts and then speaking out those negative thoughts and then acting out those negative words and thoughts. Way to go, humans. You got it right, just in the wrong direction. It seems difficult for a lot of people to be able to get those thoughts, words, and deeds all running in a straight line naturally with positive thinking at the core. Something made a strange alien sound on my Facebook. It's not me, sorry. So we're going to get into this whole thing about thought. Most of the thoughts you're having, human beings on average have between, 50 to 80 or 90,000 thoughts. And that's a pretty big window, but there's a little variance between men and women. But on average, the average mind is experiencing, far too many thoughts in a day. Now, out of that, the vast majority of those thoughts are repetitive. We can say they bubble up out of our subconsciousness. We become consciously aware of them. We relive the thought cycle, and then they splash back down into our subconsciousness again. And this is repeated many times during the day. Many times, day after day after day, the same repetitive thoughts over and over and over again. I really wish I could kill that dinger. If you see it, let me know. I'm going to hit it with something. What was I saying about thoughts? Yeah, I have to think about that. So this mound of repetitive thoughts are the core level of thought that we really need to be able to drill down to. But before we can even begin to drill down there, we have to be willing to deal with our conscious thought processes. And what this really comes down to is knowing definitively that your thoughts are creating your reality. And here's the thing. There is no reality. Now, what I mean by that is your reality is just as valid as my reality, and just as valid as their reality. Every reality is valid to the person producing it, and you are producing your reality. Now, you could say to me, well, wait a minute, Garhen. I'm not the one who decided to sneeze on a bat or whatever happened and experiment with coronaviruses or whatever else went on. That wasn't me. I'm not the one who decided to go to war. But it's not that exterior view, because that's just the writ large portion. But when we look underneath it all, the source of war happens in your own head. That's where it starts, in your own thought processes. That's where world war begins. That's where every war in history began, inside of our own heads. And it's not someone else's head. It's one head. It's that egoic cloud of humanity, which we're all tapped into on one level or another, pending where we're choosing to tune into. And this is where you have to be very cautious about your thinking. Now, I'm not trying to scare you into the idea that your thoughts can destroy you. They will one day if you're not careful. That's absolutely true. But since you're truly an immortal being, if you end up getting shuffled off this mortal coil thanks to your own thoughts, you're going to learn a very valuable lesson in that. And you're going to choose to come back here and do it again. Since I would prefer that all of you that are here today choose to stay here today, what else can we do about those thoughts? We have to be willing to face ourselves. We have to be willing to let go of our opinion. That's the first thing. The biggest thing that'll ruin your life in the making of your own reality is having your opinion being the only opinion. None of us have the right opinion. There is no right opinion. There is no wrong opinion. There's just opinion. And that's it. And when you're willing to let go of that opinion You can begin to choose consciously the thoughts that you wish to hold about your experiences, about your encounters, knowing that it's all about you. That it has nothing to do with what someone else chooses to think. You have no control over their thoughts. You are not in charge of creating their reality. Their own powerful mind is creating their version. Let them have it. You have your own. You want heaven on earth? Make it here. I gotta say, despite the fact that you'll hear me growl and occasionally whine and complain and cry too over the state of what humans will do to each other and this planet, ultimately, I know better. I still have that higher view that says everything's okay. But why if we don't have to? This is the thing. We can change everything, and we don't have to change anything. All we have to do is change ourselves. And this doesn't mean that you develop some view of the world that doesn't see anymore what's going on. It means you choose carefully how you think. And I'm going to give you some really concrete examples of this, okay? And, you know, in this case, Kelly's made a good example. I'm not worthy. Now, this thought can exist in that subconsciousness, and we're not talking about that yet. We're in the conscious realm, but believe it or not, a lot of people, especially women, that thought is there. Maybe a little whisper, quiet, but they can still hear it. I'm not worthy. Out of that comes an unwillingness and eventually an inability to speak out your reality, to speak out your truth, to stand for those things in your reality you hold dear, not to stand against anything. And soon following that thought that you're not worthy and following the words which express your lack of worth, whether you choose to or not, your behavior will also reflect that unworthiness. Now, at the beginning I said thoughts can form self-perpetuating cycles. So you can see how that's round one. I'm unworthy. I speak showing that unworthiness that I'm thinking, and then I act, consciously or unconsciously, exhibiting that unworthiness. Well, that round may go on for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10,000 more rounds, but sooner or later the being, that young woman we're talking about, grasps on to the reality that her behavior is reflecting her unworthiness, except she's not going to see it that way. Now she's going to take full blame instead of responsibility for changing what? Only the thoughts. You don't have to worry about the words or the behavior. They deal with themselves. And now she begins to feel guilty and begins to wonder if she's brought it all upon herself, which increases that feeling of unworthiness. Now, here's the funny part of it, and forgive me, but we live in trust me, okay? That which we would call God has got a really twisted, ironic sense of humor. And I love every bit of it. So we will go into a death spiral based on that initial thought and those perpetuating cycles of unworthiness and unworthy behavior and guilt over our behavior and guilt over what we've done and fear of the future, and onward and onward and onward and onward until there's no joy left in the world that young woman has created. We lock ourselves in our own boxes. We lock ourselves in our own prisons. Another example of a thought process would be, and I've seen this in young people and in older people who never got past that young people stage and are still exhibiting the same things today. They have an amazing talent. And I need you to know, look me in the eye right now, all three of them. You too have a one of a kind, amazing talent that no one on earth can duplicate. Only you have it to offer. And I see so many with these amazing talents. And yet, in their mind, there's nobody who cares. Nobody cares about them. They don't feel loved. They don't feel cherished. They don't feel wanted. Now, those who are really quick and you say, well, wait a minute, Garhen. You've always told us that feeling wanted is just putting yourself up for sale on the street corner. And it's true. But we're not talking about, an apparent individual who's, gone through a whole bunch of that stuff, reached a certain level of awakening and consciousness and has gone past those things. We're talking about someone who's still mired in it. And this gets a little confusing for some people because, everyone's looking for that ultimate state of being where it's like, whoo, that's over. That's easy. Get a lobotomy. You can do it with your own drill in the basement and a 1/4-inch bit. There's a YouTube video to follow, although I don't recommend it. The easier way is to simply stop thinking. And even better yet, get that thinking under control and putting that thinking to work for you. So these amazingly creative people who don't feel part of anything, who don't feel cared for in any way, or that anyone wants to see their work, have created a prison with no windows where no one's allowed to see into them, which perpetuates the continued cycle again. That self-perpetuating cycle, and it goes on and on and on and on. And when we create a reality that we aren't happy with and then fail to realize we're the ones creating it, we feel powerless instead of powerful. You've created your whole world. The world you're living in, according to you, right now, you created it. It's okay. There's no blame. You've done nothing wrong. Trust me. I used to live in excuse the language, a frickin' hell. A hell where I hated every human being. Where I would prefer you dead than standing in front of me getting in my way. That was my world. I made it. I don't hate myself for making that world. I love the fact that I did make that world. I love the fact that creation assisted me in making that world. Because without that world that I made, I would have never realized that I can make a whole new world just like that. And it all begins right here. So you need to ask yourself some serious questions. When you perceive that someone has wronged you in some way, you have to ask yourself, is it worth creating a reality where the person who apparently wronged me, who's at home not giving a rat's ass because they don't even know, and having a fine old time, and I'm here ruining my own life with my thoughts, creating my own reality, this negative space, all because egoically I feel I've been slighted in some way. Is it so worth it? If someone walks up to me and says, you know what, you're a useless prick, I'm gonna chuckle. Why? Because I just don't care. They're entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. It's my world I live in. In my world, it's okay. It really is. Why? Because I'm a better being without any negative thoughts around that. As a matter of fact, these days it doesn't even get a thought anymore, negative or positive or otherwise. It's more of just a momentary blip. Oh, okay, well, oh well, they're entitled. On Garhen goes, back with whatever he's doing. You get to choose. So let's say you open your bank account tomorrow and you've been robbed blind. You've got 39 cents left. Someone overseas managed to hack your account. You're going to spend hours on the phone with the bank and hope and pray to God you're going to get your money back. Does any negative thought that you will create over that help you? Is there any negative thought going on that actually makes your life somehow better in the middle of that negative situation that you are making? Because the situation just is. If someone steals every last penny out of my bank account, which I think is $5.27, I have an empty bank account. That's the end of it. I don't even add any thoughts to those things. It just is. It'll fix itself one day, some way, one way or the other. I've always managed to survive, or I won't. That's not in my hands, that's in creation's hands. I will continue to focus and create the world I want to live in, knowing that it's my world. That doesn't stop us from looking out and seeing how others people's creations are harming them. But we have to be very careful to the level to which we're going to go and try out and do anything for them. It's more important to get your own house in order first. And this sounds counterintuitive, and it has nothing to do with being narcissistic in any sort of way. But you can't honestly help anybody until you've helped yourself. You can give pseudo help, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying that a lot of times it ends up enabling, ends up helping things along rather than extinguishing them a lot of times. And not in every situation, certainly. When it comes to those deeper aspects, when we begin to sink into that deeper realm, that's the realm that people really struggle with. If you're willing to look at yourself and your thoughts, if you're willing to hold your state of being as being more important than judging anything negative, and that doesn't mean you cannot take action. So your neighbor's house catches on fire, God forbid, and burns to the ground. Yes, that is a terrible thing for someone to have to experience. That's not a concern. That is a terrible experience for someone to have to go through. But at the same time, creating a whole stream of negative thoughts regarding it is only going to depress you, is only going to impact your reality. Whereas if you have no other thought than, well, that sucks, then you can turn your thoughts to, in the world that I'm creating, what would I do knowing this person is suffering through this? And now you can entertain a positive line of thinking that uplifts you and uplifts another. It's really that easy. But only to the degree that you're willing to be open and honest with yourself and realize that you have spent and likely to a good degree will spend the vast majority of your life lying your pants off to yourself, fooling yourself in any way possible egoically. Why? So you can maintain that cloak. You got to be willing to drop the cloak. You got to be willing to become no one and no thing. and no being. And in that, you can simply be. Don't trust your thoughts. They're just thoughts. And those thoughts are very powerful, and you can take back control of those thoughts. The conscious ones. The deeper subconscious thoughts. This represents the foundation of what we would call our past. Now, you notice when I talked about that experiment in 2017 and the earlier one in the 70s, some 57 years prior, 47 if I could do math, literally what you choose today has a direct impact on all of your yesterdays. Now, you can look me square in the eye through the camera and say, Garhen, you're utterly insane. I would just chuckle and say, probably. But in my world, that's a very good thing. So I'm going to give you an example to help clear this up. Let's say 5 years ago, your very, very best friend, you've had that friend for 20 years prior to that. Excuse me a moment. Well, that very best friend, your bosom buddy, your best pal, they wrong you totally. They stomp all over you. They steal your girlfriend. And they end up marrying your girlfriend. And they end up having a perfect little life with your girlfriend. Is this sounding like a bad soap opera or perhaps a steamy romance novel? 5 years go by of you torturing yourself. And at the end of the 5th year, as the anniversary comes up and around again of the day that you had your heart torn from your breast and stuck on a stake to bleed and dry in the desert sun until it was eaten by ants and then gorged upon by, I give up. The point is, this time, you choose to change the way you think about it. You had an epiphany. You realized that girlfriend that was stolen from you wasn't really in love with you anyways from day one. And that it wasn't actually the friend that did it. It was the fact that you got your ass kicked off the football team when you broke your leg that summer. And she was a girl who dated football captains. Make up any story you want. In the moment that you accept that new line of thinking, in the moment that you internalize that new line of thinking, you erase, literally like a fuse that's burning backwards in time, right back to the incident. You take all of that ball of negative energy that exists still, the sum of all your thinking, right there in your memory bank, and you burn it the hell out in that moment. Boom, gone. Just like that. No residual effect. All of a sudden, the event 5 years ago means absolutely nothing to you. Nothing at all. You're actually happy that such a shallow person has managed to find happiness and that they apparently have a wonderful life. And maybe you can even re-engage with them again. And how did you do that? How did you change the past? You changed the past by changing right now. Because there is no past, there is no future. So if you want a future, if you want a tomorrow that looks good, you don't wait for tomorrow. The only time tomorrow can look good is right now. Right now. And I've done this living on the street. And lived what I call a beautiful life. I'm still living a beautiful life. I'll be living a beautiful life when I'm lying in the hospital bed, having my back operated on. I'll be living a beautiful life when I'm rolling around on the floor in pain. You get to choose. You have this all-powerful mind. And when it comes to that subconscious realm,
You can fix it. You can fix it by letting it go right now. You can look back and be honest with yourself about all the things that you feel you were so wronged about, and how people somehow messed you up so bad, and understand that that was all bullshit. That was all the illusion. You are far too powerful to ever have anyone mess anything up on you. You're the only one who can mess you up. That's not to make you feel guilty or bad. It doesn't matter what came before this second, right now. Only thing that matters is right now, and you have a choice to make. Do you wish to keep repeating those old patterns, or do you wish to take a good, hard, honest look at yourself deeply right now and forgive and forget? Not forgive them. Forgive yourself for not willing to be for not being willing to look at it the right way. Forgive yourself for not seeing your own strength in every situation that was trying to be shown to you in every encounter. Change the way you think, and the world changes instantly. Now, this doesn't mean, you know, when I look at hunger, and, not a day goes by where I don't think about the 40 some odd thousand children who die of starvation every day. And we kick and scream about 6,000 here in Canada, and I am not saying that to be rude. I'm talking about awareness. There's 6,000 plus 40,000 a day worldwide. And I look at that and I say, in my world, this would not be. How do I speak to that position? How do I take my thoughts, keep them focused on positivity, keep them focused on making that a reality, and speak to that and take actions towards that? Not trying to feed the world, but trying to feed one. Offering food to one. Just like that post the other day. I don't do this because I'm out here to think some big fat egoic head, or that I'm worth so many millions of dollars or should be charging so many millions of dollars. I'm not here for that. I'm here for that one. Over and over and over again. You have this incredible power within you, and the power is all in your mind. You exist in the mind of God. Your mind is part of the mind of God. It is all powerful. Love yourself enough to be able to let go of any perception that is causing you harm. There is no wrong that can be done to you that is worth what your own mind will do to you when you choose to look at things negatively. Much love to you this Sunday night. Namaste. I hope you have had a wonderful weekend and that you have a good outlook on this coming week. I really would encourage you to take this deep inside yourself. My every thought is creating my world. What world do I want to create today? Take care. Much love. Good night.